Welcome to KDD Cup Debiasing competition, hosted by Alibaba. About the motivation of this competition, recommender systems are key to e-commerce platforms, a huge market. Recommender systems serve as an important mechanism for traffic assignment. They are one of the reasons why e-commerce platforms can make so much value for their customers. However, recommender systems, even though they are good at mining patterns in the data, they can be easily misled by the selection bias present in the data. Unfortunately, selection bias is severe in recommender systems. Because the training data for recommender systems are always collected under the influence of the old recommender systems deployed yesterday. And we observe the Matthew effect in our system. That's the rich getting richer day by day. We see a small number of products getting most of the traffic, even though they are not really that good compared to the other products. So, for the fairness and to ensure the healthy development of e-commerce platforms, we propose this competition on debiasing. So the source of the competition is Mobile Taobao, the largest e-commerce platform in China. The topic is on how to recommend items that are rarely recommended in the past so as to alleviate the Matthew effect. There are a few challenges. First, the winning solution needs to address the following issue. First, the Matthew effect. We care mostly about the performance on the items that are rarely recommended before. And second, the data are collected across many weeks, including a massive sales campaign, so the trends are always shifting. The data may not follow the traditional independent identical distributed assumptions. And finally, since the items are not recommended for many times in the past, we need to take advantage of the item's image and text attributes. To make it easier, we provide the image and text information in the form of preprocessed vectors output by a multimodality pre-trained model. So you may be wondering, does Alibaba has made any efforts on fairness of the recommender systems? The answer is yes. We have recently just put a technical report on arXiv, which describes a new technique for reducing the selection bias. Our recent work is on the candidate generation phase of large-scale recommender systems. People from the industry must be familiar with these two figures. On the right side is a typical D model for candidate generation, where the softmax loss has been proven to be really well performing for the problem of candidate generation. And our new work is on proposing a new loss that replaces the traditional sample softmax loss. And this new loss happens to have the effect of bias reduction. So about the softmax loss of candidate generation, the full softmax loss need to sum over all possible items as shown in equation 1. On our platforms, there are over 100 million items. It is impossible to sum over such a large number of items exactly. And sample softmax, shown in equation 2, is typically used. When using sample softmax, we sample a few thousand items and compute the loss by summing over the sample items only. Note that with sample softmax, we need to subtract the log Q term from the similarity scores. Here, Q, Y conditional X is the sampling distribution. Many people may not know that we need to subtract log Q from the scores, unless you have read the source code of the sample softmax implemented by TensorFlow, or have read the details of the papers on sample softmax. You really need to subtract log Q to ensure that this sample loss is approximating the exact full loss, just like important samplings. On the other hand, there is a well-known loss function usually used by the computer vision people. This well-known loss is called InfoNCE and belongs to the family of contrastive loss. This contrastive loss is very similar to sampled softmax. The difference is that this contrastive loss doesn't subtract log Q. So what is this contrastive loss actually optimizing? Well, our recent contribution is that we prove that this contrastive loss actually has the effect of bias reduction. The key is that if we follow the literature of causal inference and use a well-known technique for bias reduction, the inverse propensity weighting technique, we can modify the full softmax loss into the IPW loss, showing equation 4, which is in theory capable of modeling the selection bias. We then prove that the contrastive loss and the IPW loss for debiasing is actually optimizing the same goal, as long as we set QY given X to be the exposure distribution. That's the distribution represented by the old recommendation policy under which we collected the training data. We also provide an efficient implementation which does not need to use alias sampling when sampling the negatives from the exposure distribution. We maintain a first in first out queue to store the previously encountered samples and use the queue to serve as the negative samples. The queue provides opportunities for computation reuse and is very efficient when encoding complex features such as multimodality features, which is good for code study. More details can be found in our technical report. Our new algorithm has been fully deployed into our system for more than half a year, and we see that it consistently outperforms the previously strongest deep candidate generation model in our system. And we see that more items that are previously rarely recommended now has a much higher chance to be recommended by the new algorithm, showing that we are indeed promoting a fair system, a much fairer system for the content producers or the product sellers. So in summary, we have recently developed a new technique for fairness in recommender systems. The key is that we establish the connection between contrastive learning and the propensity-based bias reduction techniques. And our new framework brings a fair ecosystem with a highly efficient queue-based implementation. Now back to the competition. Let us now announce the top 10 winners of the KDD Cup Debiasing competition. So the top 10 winners are listed here. Congratulations to the top 10 teams: AIster, The Wisdom, The Avengers, etc. This year we have almost 2,000 teams, so it's really hard to take the top 10 positions. Again, congratulations to them, and they will give their talks on their solutions later.